We're about to go live. Here we go.
All right.
Hi, folks. This is Chris Ye with Blitzscaling a Startup, and I am so delighted today to have a very special guest, somebody who has come to us through one of our previous guests. We are joined today by one of the most important people in African fashion and global streetwear in general, Ireti. And if you had been listening to our previous interview with Ireti's brother, TZ, you'll know that she is the creator of Street Souk, which is the premier streetwear convention that is held in Lagos, Nigeria, and that she is a major fashion influencer from all around the world. So, Iriti, it is such a pleasure to have you on. It is such a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. And
No,
shout
my
out to
pleasure.
TZ for putting me forward for this.
Yeah, so I'm so excited, but one of the things that we do in these sorts of podcasts and things is we like to make sure that people are able to plug the things that are going on. So before we get started, one of the things is people can find you obviously at streetsouk.com,
Yeah.
streetsouk.com. And I guess Instagram is also one of the best places. Where should they find you?
Instagram at IretiZ99. That's at IRETIZEE. And yeah, I use Instagram. I'm not too versed on TikTok, but I'm on TikTok as well. IretiZ and no Twitter. That's about it. And LinkedIn as well if it's business.
Absolutely. So let's start with some of the basics because I want to make sure people understand just what Street Souk is. How would you summarize it? One of the things that I thought was really interesting about Street Souk is, in many ways, it was actually inspired by your very amazing mother. So, talk to me about Street Souk, what it is, and how it was that your mother actually helped lead to creating it.
Yeah, so Street Souk is a streetwear community and convention birthed out of Lagos, Nigeria. It started because I had, like about 6 years ago, I had so many friends that had streetwear brands. At that point, it was kind of like young people printing something they stole off the internet on a really terrible quality t-shirt. And I realized that everyone was selling like 10, 20 t-shirts to their friends and thinking, oh, I've sold out. But I'm like, that is not really selling out. You kind of like pressured your friends and family to, support your business. So that's how I would say Street Souk started. And then I really didn't have a vision saying, like, in 5 years, I want to do this, I want to do that. At that point, I just wanted to provide a platform for my friends, basically. And I realized from the call out, which I put on my Snapchat and my Twitter, and my Instagram, like, if you have a streetwear brand, reach out to me. And I had so many people saying, oh, my cousin has one and he would love to get involved. And that's really how we kicked off. And my mother was my big inspiration because she had a fashion souk in Nigeria, which she has a fashion souk in Nigeria, which is essentially street souk but for a different demographic. And with street souk, we deal a lot with like the experience, the community, and all that kind of stuff. But for fashion souk, um, it was very vendor focused. It's like we're gonna have 150 to 250 brands in this place, and people are gonna come and shop, do their Christmas runs before the holiday. And so I went for my mom's souk, and I realized I could definitely be doing this for my friends and my people, like younger people. All I have to do is add a couple elements that make it cool. So for example, we had a skate rink because we knew like skate culture and streetwear culture are very very intertwined. And I was friends with a lot of the skaters, and I was like, yo, guys, would you like to come down to my event and just like showcase your tricks and all that kind of stuff? And that's honestly how it started. And over the years, like, it's just been incredible.
And that is one of the things
Been
about
like this.
entrepreneurship. Yeah, that's one of the things about entrepreneurship people don't always appreciate, which is
Yeah.
nobody it wasn't like when you started Street Souk, you're like, aha, I have all the resources and I'm already
No.
famous and everyone knows me. You were just the
No.
one who was brave enough to say, you know what, this should exist. And I'm just going to reach out to people I know and I'm
Yeah.
going to be the producer that gathers everything together. And people look back and say, wow, that's amazing. How did you know? And the fact is, you don't necessarily know, but you know
Exactly.
that it should exist.
No. Yeah, especially because obviously in the rest of the world, I saw things like Soul DXB were going on for so many years. Complex Con was happening at that point in time. There was still like Hype Fest. So I was like, this is a model that's going on in the rest of the world. Like that is how we work in Africa. Like everything else kind of happens everywhere else, and then eventually we catch on. So I was just lucky and blessed to be the person to, really create this streetwear community in Nigeria and be able to connect the whole of Africa through streetwear.
Although I will say, I mean, I think we are entering into a new era. Obviously, I interviewed your brother Teasy, and there we talked a little bit about how Afro beats and other things like his specific variant, Alte, have become things that are exported from Africa to the rest of the world. I think that there's a good argument to be made that so much of popular culture is being created in Africa today, and then because of
100%.
globalization, being exported everywhere.
Yes, 100%. Like our culture is probably the highest currency we have right now, um, especially when it comes to music. And due to the trajectory of music, we know that fashion has next because all our artists have been so supportive of all the brands out here. They've been wearing so much like homegrown and locally made clothing, like, and they are literally at the forefront of pop culture, like you said. So, with the same way the music is going, fashion is coming right behind. There's so many young, talented kids out here that all they need is that opportunity, that platform. Like some of these kids here are gonna end up being the creative designers of some of the biggest houses in the world, and I can put my hand as on my chest and say that anytime, anywhere. They just really needed someone to like believe in them, show them that this is possible. You don't have to be a doctor or an engineer. Like you can be a streetwear entrepreneur. You can be a fashion designer. You can consult for a brand. Like there's so many different ways you can make a living and enjoy what you do.
Now, one of the things is now that we've really gotten people a flavor for Street Souk and the things you're working on, let's go back to the superhero origin story. So, you mentioned you didn't like grow up as an 8-year-old thinking you're going to create this streetwear convention.
No.
You were thinking other things. In fact, like your brother, you're very academically inclined. You studied
Yeah.
at university. Like me, you have a master's degree in business, which is not
Yeah.
what people usually think of when they think of streetwear. And I believe you were
100%.
also an amazing football player as well. So, how did all these influences mix together with Nigeria, the UK, academics, sport, all coming together to bring you to where you are today?
I felt like I just had many different chapters of my life. Obviously, growing up in Nigeria, like there weren't many sports like that were offered to people to play. It was like football, basketball. For girls, it was like ballet. Like, and my brother was an incredible football player, and he's been my role model my whole life. So he was playing football from when I was born. I saw him playing football, so I realized like this is what I want to do as well. I want to play football. Then I started playing in my primary school in Nigeria here, and then they realized like she's a girl, but she's really good. Like I was only ever playing with the boys teams. I was always the best player on all the boys teams, whether it was senior or junior or whatever. And then I moved to England, and my coach in the school I went to, they actually weren't playing football at all. And I went up to them and was like, why isn't football a thing? I know we go to an all girls school, but it doesn't matter. Like some girls actually do enjoy playing football. And honestly, that's how it started. And I created football as a extracurricular in my school, in my old school. And this is about 10 years ago. It didn't exist before I started playing there. And before you know it, my coach was like, you're a bit too good for everyone else that's playing here. So like we want to help you get better. So we think you should go to some Crystal Palace tryouts. And I was like, I never knew I was actually. I always thought I was good, but I was like, okay, I hate rejection, but I was like, you know what? Let's try it out. And I went to Crystal Palace tryouts, and I made it to the team. So I played at Crystal Palace for 2 years. It was a lot of discipline. It taught me a lot of just getting along with a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, and just it was a great experience. One of the best things I felt like I ever did, and just to be able to play something I love so much on the highest level at that point, it was incredible.
That is absolutely amazing. And again, it's not just about your being a phenomenal athlete, it's about being an entrepreneur along the way,
Yeah.
right? Making something that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
And, I think it's great that the coaches and other folks like that also said, hey, you know what? You've created this thing, you've built this thing, that's fantastic. But for you, we need you to go to the highest possible level. So that was
Yeah.
great and generous on their part as well.
Yeah.
So this is all happening, by the way, at the same time. You're then, going to university, you're studying, you're getting a master's degree. How did you balance all these things?
So football was actually much earlier in my life. It was when I was about 16.
Hmm.
I was still like but I was doing my GCSEs and stuff there. I don't know if you're too familiar with the UK curriculum, but that's like the exams you do
Yep.
right before you go to like higher level of like high school, basically. Your last 2 years of high school. Um, and then I did A levels, and that was kind of university, first year of university. That is when Street Souk came into pass, and I just
Mm.
always knew I was like super entrepreneurial. I've been in the entertainment industry in Nigeria
It's in your
since I
blood,
was 14.
literally.
No, literally, since I was 14. For as long as I can remember, like I've been doing something in entertainment. When my brother started off with his band DRB, the first alter band like crew in the whole of the world, I guess, because they created it.
That's
I
right.
was the one making sure like we were selling their tickets, doing their logistics. I didn't even know what I was doing, but anything I was told to do, I was making sure I made it happen. So that is how it all really started for me. And through uni, I had like some amazing friends who were just like, yo, we believe in what you want to do. How do you want us to help you? And that's really how it started. I was 18 and in my first year uni dorm, realizing that I really want to do some amazing stuff. And that was how we started. The August, I started planning. December, we did the first one.
Amazing. So you actually did this while you were at university, which includes, by the way, you're up there in the UK planning a major event down in Lagos. That must
In
have been
Nigeria,
tough.
yeah. Yeah, it was really, really hard, especially being so young and having to have all these meetings with like sponsors and them looking at you like, aren't you supposed to be in school? Like, what are you doing? Or like, what is streetwear? Because at that point in time, no one, everything, like all the coverage and everything we're getting from streetwear right now, it wasn't like that. It wasn't in existence. No Nigerian streetwear brand was featured in Vogue or featured in Teen Vogue, or international artists were wearing nothing like that was happening. There were about two established brands at that point, Motors Vivendi and Wolf. Like those are the only two brands that were really doing anything. Everything else was still very, very, very grassroots. So just trying to make the people who had the power to make it happen believe was one of the hardest things.
And that's one of the things that, it feels like you've been really good at throughout your life. And I see this common thread of getting people to believe that things could be different, getting people to
Yeah,
believe that we could start a football team, getting people to believe that we could
yeah,
create a global streetwear conference in Lagos. And part of
yeah.
that is you have to believe yourself. Where does that ability to believe come from? Is it your family? Is it your experiences? Tell
It
me
comes
about
from
that.
my family. It comes from my family. I come from a family where if you say you want to do something, everyone is going to push you and support you to do exactly what you said you want to do. And nothing is too crazy. Luckily for me, both my parents are entrepreneurs, so they were never pushing me in a direction saying, we want you to be this, we want you to be this. Like you said, I studied business and all of that in school. I wanted to be an investment banker or an oil engineer because I wanted to be ridiculously wealthy. Because you see, no one told me that I was going to be able to do what I love and through streetwear or everything. So my initial was like, I need to be an investment banker. I need to go into private equity to live the kind of life I wanted to live. But luckily for me, when we kicked off the first event, my mom was my biggest sponsor, my biggest supporter. She made sure I had the blueprint to know how to do everything. She made sure all my T's were crossed, all my I's were dots. Of course, there were a lot of lessons that no matter how much someone could tell you, you had to learn by yourself on the go. There was a lot of things that were easier for me, but I would never say it was easy. I just definitely had the support system, which is the most important thing for anyone doing anything. And I had a brother who was, one of like the most popular people in the whole city. So if he says, yo, my sister is doing this, you need to come to this, people are gonna come. So
No, absolutely. And, just listening
really
to
shape.
this.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, so you cut out briefly. So what happens is the editors will fix it later on. When you
Okay.
cut out, I just sort of like wait a little bit, and then I go on talking
Okay.
under the
Sorry.
assumption that I know what you said.
Nigerian internet, man. You know how it
Not a
goes.
problem. We were dealing with this. We deal with this with a lot of guests from all over the world, so it is not an issue. But
Yeah.
let me cycle
Okay.
back. We're going to pause for like 3 seconds, and then I'll start speaking again. That'll make it
Okay.
easier for the editors. So I'm just hearing this story and I'm thinking to myself, of course, it's a great loss to the stylishness of the investment banking industry that you didn't become an investment banker. But boy, you've had such a bigger impact as an entrepreneur. I mean, not
For sure.
just in your own accomplishment and the ability to lead the life you want to lead, but in enabling so many other entrepreneurs, so many streetwear entrepreneurs who otherwise wouldn't have had a venue to show
For
what they
sure.
were capable of.
100%. 100%. And I'm very grateful that that was the mission God had given me on this planet, because I believe like Street Souk is my mission. The journey I started with it is so much bigger than myself. And I feel like every year I come to terms with that and realize like this isn't about me. Like 50 years from now, like I don't need you to know that it was started by this person called. I just need to know that it is still in existence. It is still making the country and the continent proud, and it's still putting so many people on and allowing people, giving people a chance to provide for themselves and their families.
Now I'm trying to picture. I mean, you mentioned before about how you're so glad you're going to be able to help the young people coming up. I'm very old, and so to me, you look young, and I wonder, as you were thinking, two different things. One, what kind of advice can you give now to other young people, to you when you were 15 years old and you were playing football and whatnot? What advice would you give to young people now that you've become this grizzled veteran? And then second, what are the next chapters? What are things you still want to accomplish? You've accomplished so much. What are some other things you would like to do?
Appreciate that. Okay, so the first, I'm gonna answer the first question first.
Hmm.
So the one thing I would advise to young people is you need to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, it's gonna be very hard for anyone else to. Try your hardest to stay authentic and stay original to yourself. We're in a generation where everyone wants to be so different, like they're being like someone else. That just stay true to your core and be honest. Do business as good as you can. Don't try and take any shortcuts, because there's a quote someone said to me: "You rush in, you rush out." So trust the process, believe in yourself, and don't stop. No matter what happens, no matter what ups and downs you face, what up trials and tribulations, just keep going, because it's better to know in your heart of heart that you tried your hardest and you did everything you could, than to be like, oh, I wish I did this. Oh, I wish I did this. And the
Absolutely.
second
You
part of the
regret so
question
much.
is, I don't think I've even, yeah. And the second part of the question is, I honestly don't feel like I've scratched the surface of what I need to do with Street Souk and what I know Street Souk, the impact Street Souk can have on the African streetwear community. Right now, I know it's so much bigger than Nigeria. That's why I keep saying the African streetwear community, and this is home and away. So people in the diaspora as well as people who are here back home, and um to continuously going on tours, visiting new cities, conquering new territories, building our network and expanding our community. That is a major thing for me. I have a couple of things in the works here, but I don't want to quite jinx it. But just being able to allow a lot more people to have access to our product, I'll say that. Definitely trying to go into online, and just in terms of like the business of Street Souk, like I Street Souk is gonna be a Fortune 500 company. I can't tell you exactly right now how I'm gonna do it, but I know I'm going to do it. So just being on that journey and just knowing how I'm going to really take everything to the next level and continuously taking everything to the next level. That's the plan.
Got it. So this is really, as you said, not just a job, not just a startup, but an entire calling, something that you want to be able to devote decades of your life to in really
For
transforming
sure.
the entire industry.
For sure. That's the plan.
Yeah. It's not often that I have a global fashion icon on the show with me, so I'm going to take advantage of it to ask a couple of more fashion-related questions. So the first is, you are, of course, wearing your trademark sunglasses. You wear sunglasses all the time, I've heard. And I'm
Yes, I
curious,
do all
you
the
you
time.
are also, even though you're young, you're obviously a student of the classics, because I saw in an interview you talked about how, dyeing your hair blonde is part of the Mary J. Blige style. And I'm like, wow, I'm amazed she's
Yeah,
heard of the legendary Mary J. Blige. I'm glad
I've
to hear
actually
that.
met her. She was so nice,
You
such an
met her?
incredible
Oh
white
my
woman.
gosh.
I
All right,
have,
tell
and
me
I was
about
so
that. We
happy.
have to hear that story.
I was at the opening of the Flippers Roller Boogie in London by what's his name? It's owned by he's the goat. He's incredible. I can't remember his name is just left my head. But yeah, Mary J. Blige was there, like LL Cool J, like Dr. Dre, like a whole lot of legends were there. So I just went up to her and was like, I'm a big fan. I don't necessarily listen to your music, but your blonde is so iconic. Obviously, I didn't say that to her, but I was like, I need a picture, and that was it.
But you showed her the hair, right? You showed her the hair, and
I had the blonde hair. She loved
oh,
it.
that is fantastic, amazing. And then, of course, with
Give me ID. That's
sunglasses,
his name.
with sunglasses, there is a very famous 1980 song, which of course means it's 40 years old now, talking about wearing sunglasses at night. Have you ever heard that song?
Nope.
Look it up on
I would love to
YouTube.
know it though. I'll make it my new theme song.
Absolutely. Look it up on YouTube. It's called Sunglasses is Night by a fellow named Corey Hart. So it'll be I'm glad I was able to bring some of my old school, old people culture, like your mother's old people souk. We are able to still influence the young.
I love it.
Now, another question. One of the things that I did over this winter holidays is that I dyed my hair red. So my daughter was doing some hair dyeing for my wife, and they had the stuff out. And I'm like, hey, why don't we go ahead and give me a dye job as well? What do you think? Should I
I
keep the
love it
red? Should I stay with
for
it? Is it
sure.
noticeable enough? Or should I
You
go
should definitely.
blonde?
Blonde would be super super cool, but I'm definitely digging the red. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. So let me ask a follow-up question then about family. So with family, obviously it's been a huge influence. One of the things I did when I talked with your brother was say, talk to me about the things that maybe you don't get a chance to talk about in interviews all the time. And, maybe there are some topics that you wish you could talk about, but normally you don't get asked. What are things that people don't know that the typical interviews don't get into?
um, I feel like I guess family is a topic, but because like in a lot of my interviews now, I've been saying how much like my family influences everything I do. Like it's become more of a topic, which I'm really happy about. Because anytime I get to like really show like appreciation for my brother, my mom, my sister, my dad, like I'm very happy. Like I'm able to do that. But in terms of topics that I don't think is spoken about enough, um I guess sometimes it's just like how hard it is sometimes to actually do what you do because
Yeah.
I guess like social media, I'm only gonna show you the glory and the fun bits and everyone's just seeing you enjoying yourself, doing what you love, but people don't realize like until I took a holiday last week, for the last 6 months I hadn't slept for more than like 4 hours because I just had so much to do and I knew like I didn't have enough time to make it happen. So just definitely like the stress that really comes to doing something that is so much bigger than yourself, especially when you know that if you don't do it, who's gonna do it? So I think definitely just how much work actually goes behind making things happen. Because people, like I said, you come to the event, you have a great time, you say on Twitter that, oh my God, this event was so good. Sometimes some people have like, oh, this event was so bad or whatever, but it's like people don't actually think what it took to like, really make this happen.
Yeah. And obviously, it's hard work, not just on your part, but on the part of other members of your team or people
For
that you're
sure.
collaborating with.
For
Uh,
sure.
how do you get people on board with your purpose, your mission? How do you keep them on board? What kind of things do you do to inspire them, or how have you brought these people in?
The Street Souk team is like a family, and it's actually built up of a lot of my like actual family members. I have three of my cousins in my team,
Mm,
and it's just everyone who's kind of been there since year one. So they've seen the growth, and I feel like the vision of what the potential of what it could be is definitely something that keeps people in the system, because it's
mm,
like we've been able to do this much with this little resources from where we're from. Imagine if, and when, and that if is a definite, is going to happen. We start getting this level of support from the international community, for example, or we start getting this level of funding. Like, what would we actually be able to do? So I think people within my team knowing that they're going to grow with this thing, and it's not something that is like, oh, I want to be doing this for the next 2 years, or I don't have a timeline for this. If I'm at 50 and I'm still talking about Street Soup, then so shall it be. Do you know what I mean? So
well, I think
that
that's a
that is
great thing.
what I'm.
If you're 50,
Yeah.
which is going to be a long way off, not so long for me, but a long way off for you, and you're still talking about Street Souk, it means you've had an impact. It means that you have
For
built
sure.
something that has lasting impact and staying power.
For sure. And that's the plan. And I think just we like everyone in the Street Soup team is treated like family. Like, these are people that I invite over to my house. They eat with me, eat with my parents. Like, we we literally speak every day. I actually care about the well-being of people. It's like, yo, how are you actually doing? Like, before we get into work, it's like, let's talk about ourselves. And like, everyone that I work with is also my friend. So we have a lot of like, our meetings is like 20 minutes of, and the introduction is 20 minutes of straight banter. Everyone's catching up. Like, what have you been up to? I saw you at the club last night. Ha ha ha. Like, it's very, very like, it's super, super cozy. Super, excuse me, super comfortable. Everyone in my team is under 25 as well. So it's like we're all super young and just very excited, and like we really, really believe in what we're doing.
Amazing. Now, you mentioned before that one of the things that people don't see is just how hard things can be. And, I think that it's great that you're willing to share some of that. What's an example of a major challenge that you faced when you were worried? You weren't certain if you're going to be able to pull it off. You were concerned about what was going to happen. You were losing even more sleep than normal. Of course, it
Yeah.
hopefully worked out all right. But, what's an example of the kind of moment that you faced? And then how did you get through it? Who were the people who supported you in getting through it?
So in 2022, the Nigerian naira, like, for the first time, like, really, really crashed. Like,
Mm.
the currency went to absolute, I don't know if I can swear, but
You can
shits. Like,
swear.
it was terrible. And by October, I was done with my sponsorship raising. Like, I had over 100% of what I thought I needed to make everything happen, right? And then a month before the event, I have like 3 out of 6 of my sponsors. Two out of two. Okay, so let's say I had 6 sponsors, right?
Yeah.
Two sponsors pulled out. They were like, the state of the economy right now, we can't do this. We need to diversify our funds. Da 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 da. My main sponsor cut their budget into less than a half,
Oh
literally.
my gosh.
What we thought we had was then reduced to half. And then the other two sponsors as well were kind of like, we know we promised you this amount, but then we can give you this amount in cash and like the rest in XXX support. And the support, you don't always need that. It's kind of
Yeah.
like you're sending text messages to 100 million people. That sounds great on paper, but I don't need 100 million people to pull up to my event, especially when it's the wrong demographic of people. Do you know what I mean? So that was definitely one of the hardest things I faced, and just having to, because I had such crazy big plans. Like, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, what I wanted to build, how I wanted the experience to be. And it was like, okay, now I need to make do with what I have. So just having to come to terms with that, and having to, like, speak to my team and be like, guys, this is what's going on right now. This is where we thought we were, but we're not there. We're gonna have to make do with what we had, because when you think about it, the first year, which was one of the most amazing years because it was so pure, we had next to nothing to make it happen. So that was a big thing, I would say, that I'd faced. in my career, but we still pulled it off. We had an incredible turnout, and it was amazing.
And there's so many lessons that I extract from that. The first is the balance, right? You were able to sketch this super compelling vision that got your team on board, that got these sponsors on board, but you didn't hesitate when suddenly circumstances changed to say, listen, I know we had this vision. We're going to have a different vision. It's still going to be awesome, but it's going to be awesome
Yep,
in a different way. And I mean, how quickly were you able
100%.
to come to terms with that? I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they cling to their vision of the past for too long. Maybe they don't pivot quickly enough. How did you know that you needed to change, and how did you have that decisiveness?
Um, for one, like I have like people like my brother and um his partner Grace that I really rely on when it comes to making decisions for like my events, because they both do two of the biggest events in the country as well. Grace does homecoming, TZ does native. So you know I was like, okay guys, this is the situation I'm in, these are my options, what do I do? And it was like scale down. But the thing about scaling down is only you know you're scaling down, because
Exactly.
the consumers are not, they're not in the planning process. And whatever you give them, especially if it's still on that level and the fundamentals of community, like just being, allowing them to feel like they belong, providing the platform, as long as those fundamentals are there, everything else is fine. I might not be able to have a lot of like extra things that don't necessarily always like add value, let's say monetarily, to your event, but could add value in a design wise, for example. So I just had to, I would also say like I'm a very resilient person. I've been through like a bunch of different situations in my life where I thought something was supposed to go this way, it didn't, and I had to, do a little skirt and start doing something else. And because of my faith as well, like I'm a heavy believer in God. I believe
Mm.
in signs, I believe in wonders, I believe in, if something is meant for you, it will happen. If I was supposed to get the full funding to do what I needed to do that year, God would have made it possible. But the next year we got more than even the amount we wanted to, and we were able to double up on everything. So I know that's how the universe works. I know. And I just sometimes, like, you just have to trust your gut and know that, okay, it's a bummer, but I can't stop now, like I'm too deep in. But literally, like, I remember saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I think we should cancel this. We can't do it. We don't have enough money. But I'm very happy that I didn't allow, like, the little voices on my shoulders get the best of me.
Absolutely. And part of that, which I want to highlight, since I think that a lot of times entrepreneurs don't necessarily speak about their faith. Part of what I want to highlight is your faith is one of the things that allow you to accept reality,
Hundred
because
percent.
you were able to say, listen, if I wish this weren't happening, but it's happening, and it must be
Yep.
happening for a reason. It's a challenge
Yep.
that is being presented to me,
Yep.
and I have to decide how to respond. And it
Yep.
feels like your faith actually made it easier for you to accept that things had changed.
100%. My faith makes everything easier for me. Even waking up every day and understanding why the world is the way it is. Like, I walk by faith and not by might or power or anything. So,
Well, you've been very generous with your time, but I want to make sure before we sign off that we give you a chance to talk about anything that, we should have asked you about but failed to do so. What other things can we do to make this one of the best interviews you've ever had?
I want to highlight 5 streetwear brands from Nigeria that I feel like
Perfect.
everyone should be, keeping their eye on right now, because there's some really, really amazing stuff happening back home. And I just really want people to, tap in. So you know what? I'm not gonna do Nigeria. I'm gonna do Africa, because we've done a bit of a tour.
That's right. You are all
We've
about
seen a
Africa, not just Nigeria.
exactly. So I would say from Nigeria, you need to check out this young kid. His name is Bola PSD. He started off as my graphic designer 3 years ago, and the kid has grown so much, and he's doing incredible things, selling out pop-ups out in Lagos and in Abuja, which is so incredible. I'm so proud of him. There's another brand called WWYD. They were at the pop-up. We took them to Dubai for Soul DXB. It's owned by my friend. She's an incredible multidisciplinary artist. She's a DJ, she's a visual artist, she takes photos, and she has one of the hottest and coolest brands in the city right now called WWYD. female owned as well, so you should definitely check it out. Obviously, my brother's Free the Youth. That is my favorite streetwear brand in the world, honestly. They're just so authentic. They're so real. Their stories are shown through their clothing, and they believe in themselves and they believe in me more than anything. And we just created the dopest jersey of 2023. We sold out in all cities. We're about to restock it. So shout out to Free the Youth. There's a brand in Cape Town called Cassie Flavors. Incredible remakes of different jerseys using knitwear, a lot of like African, what's the word? A lot of African influence in all his designs. So I really, really love it. And I think the last brand, I'll say Motherland as well. I mean, these are brands that some of them are already established, some are still on the come up, but everyone just needs to Motherland, skate brand out of Lagos, Nigeria. My brothers are killing it in London. Just had a Doc Martin collaboration as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. And again, I think it's so typical of you. And again, I've only known you for this interview, although I've read about you before. It's so typical of you that I gave you a chance to say whatever needed to be said. And what you did is what you do in your life, which is to lift up others, to
Yeah,
take entrepreneurs and improve their chances of success and to shine the spotlight on them. But I'm glad
yeah.
we were able to shine the spotlight on you, at least for this
I
period.
appreciate that. I
Just
appreciate that.
incredible. I'm so impressed by all the things you've done, even more
Thank you
impressed by
so
the
much.
person that you are.
I
And
appreciate you.
your brother was saying, "Oh, you have to understand, my sister is far more intelligent and interesting than me." I don't know. I think your brother's a pretty intelligent and interesting
Yeah, he's
guy.
pretty intelligent.
He's got a lot going for him.
Incredible human being.
But
Incredible
I
human.
so enjoyed this as well, and I am looking forward to several decades of being able to follow the
Amen.
things that you guys are doing as you are transforming Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, Africa, and the world. Just
Yeah.
incredible stuff.
Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate you and your time as well.
My pleasure. All right, folks, this has been Blitzscaling a Startup with the truly amazing fashion icon, entrepreneur, football star, academic all star, just
Yeah.
amazing all round woman, Ireti. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you
me.
so much, guys. I appreciate you, man. Have a great, great afternoon, whatever time it is where you are, and thank you so much.
Thank you.